Okay, this is a presentation of Who Am I by the book of Bhagavan's teachings by by Adrit, Ananya, Chris, and Sahana.
Before we understand the book Who Am I, let's first look at Bhagavan's early life. Bhagavan was born as Venkataraman Iyer on 30th December 1879 in Tirucheri, Tamil Nadu, to Sundaram Iyer in Aragamal. As a child, he lived a fairly ordinary life and he didn't show any interest in spirituality or academics. In 1892, he was 12 years old and his father passed away. After this, he moved to Madurai to live with his uncle. This move became an important turning point because when he was in Madurai, he first heard of Arunachala from his relative, his uncle. Until then, he believed that Arunachala was a mythical place, but learning that it was a real sacred hill created a deep spiritual attraction within him. And then in 1896, at the age of 16, he had a profound spiritual awakening. During an intense experience of the fear of death, he began asking himself, "Who am I?" Through this experience, he realized that his true self was eternal and beyond the physical body. Soon after leaving home, he left a short farewell note to his family and traveled to Tiruvannamalai, believing that he was answering Arunachala's call. He spent the next several years living in the caves of Arunachala, immersed in meditation and silence. Over time, more and more people came to seek his guidance, and his teachings on self-inquiry began to spread to devotees.
Bhagavan's death experience was the experience that changed his life the most. It took place in July 1896 in his home. He was 16 at that time. Randomly, out of the blue, he experienced this sudden fear that he was dying. So he lay down on a bed in the position of a dead body, his arms spread out, his eyes closed, staying very still, holding his breath. And then he knew that if he were to die, his body would be cremated. It would be taken, carried to the burning grounds, and reduced to ashes. The questions came to him automatically. Does the death of the body mean that I am dying? What is it, or who is it that dies? That self-inquiry, it woke something in him, and he became realized from that day on. That experience was the foundation of all of his teachings, everything that followed. Without the death experience, Bhagavan would not be Bhagavan. He would be a teenage boy still deeply invested in worldly matters. This experience became the foundation of his teachings. The title, meaning of Nanyad, means who am I? And that question is what helped Bhagavan experience his spiritual awakening and become one with Arunachala.
Okay, some history about the Who Am I book. Around 1901 and 1902, Bhagavan was living in Virupaksha cave and he barely spoke because he was observing silence and he communicated through gestures. Many visitors was seeking spiritual answers from him, and one of them was Shiva Prakash Pillai. He was a philosopher and he was also a government official. He asked Bhagwan several questions about the self, the mind, and how a person can attain liberation. Since Bhagwan wasn't really speaking as he was observing silence, he answered by writing on a paper or a slate, or sometimes even on the ground. He mostly answered with gestures. And Pillai carefully preserved these answers and he wrote it in a book called Who Am I? So, since this teaching, the teachings in Who Am I are based on the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, which teaches that our true self or Atman is not separate from the ultimate reality. But instead of explaining this through complex philosophy, Bhagwan presented it in a very simple and practical way. He encouraged people to ask the question, "Who am I?" and to trace the feeling of I back to its soul. Later in 1923, Pillai published these questions and answers in Tamil as Nanyar, along with some Tamil poems, meaning Who Am I? Bhagwan later revised and expanded the material into an essay, and that is the book that we all know today. Even though it's a small book, it contains the essence of Bhagwan's teachings, and it's considered one of the best introductions to his philosophy.
So these are the key ideas of Nanyad. So the first key idea is the appearance of Nanyad, and this was first identified by Bhagavan at the time of his death experience. He transformed it into his teachings. The second key idea is what is Nanyad, and that is the practice of turning inwards to find the ego and dissolve it with the awareness of its presence. And the third key idea is awareness, which is knowing that you're not the body or the mind. And this is what helps you detach from the worldly matters and turn you inward to seek the I. And the fourth key idea is subject versus object. So the subject refers to the awareness or consciousness that perceives the I, that is the aware of thoughts, sensations, and the world. And the object is whatever is perceived, so thoughts, feelings, sights, sounds, or experiences. And the fifth key idea is how to gain self realization. And how you do it is when a thought arises, you have to catch it and ask to who the thought is coming to, and then to try to find and focus the actual source.
So these are some important quotes, their translations and their significance. Part one, there's two parts to this. I can't read Tamil, I believe, so I'll just say the translation. So for quote one, in English, it says, "If other thoughts rise, one should not pursue them, but should inquire, to whom do they arise? It does not matter how many thoughts arise. As each thought arises, one should inquire with diligence, to whom has this thought arisen? The answer that would emerge would be to me. Thereupon, if one inquires, who am I? The mind will go back to its source." So the significance of this is that this is one of the core teachings and metaphors of who am I? Oh, sorry, actually, that's the wrong translation. I'm sorry. That's for quote two. The quote one's actual translation is the thought. Yeah, this is a slightly outdated version. I don't know why it is, but the thought "Who am I?" will destroy all other thoughts, and like the stick used for stirring the burning pyre, it it will itself in the end get destroyed. Then there will realize self-realization. So the significance of quote one is that this is one of the core teachings and the core metaphors of who am I. It shows the purpose of the thought, who am I, is not to be repeated as a mantra, but to instead function as a destructive tool that destroys everything around it, all thought and distraction, all objects. And then eventually it destroys itself, the ego, to achieve self-realization. So this is what quote two looks like in Tamil. Yeah, you can move forward. Thanks. Um, and the translation is the one that I accidentally had earlier. Um, if other thoughts arise, one should not pursue them, but should inquire, to whom do they arise? It does not matter how many thoughts arise. As each thought arises, one should inquire with diligence, to whom has this thought arisen? The answer that would emerge would be to me. Thereupon, if one inquires, who am I? The mind will go back to its source. So, the significance of this quote, the significance of this quote is that this is the core practical instruction of who am I? The advice is to not fight or follow the thoughts, but ask, and to whom do they arise? Which snaps attention from the object, the distraction thought, to the subject of destruction, the ego. And finally, the quote three, which is what actually my favorite quote. Of all the thoughts that arise in the mind, the I thought is the first. It is only after the rise of this I that the other thoughts arise. So this quote establishes the psychological foundation of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi's framework. He points out that you cannot perceive the world, feel emotions, or have a concept of existence itself without first having a localized sense of me, who is experiencing it. The ego, I, is the foundation of all thoughts, of all objects. By destroying this foundation, all mental structure collapses, and the only thing that's left is the true self. And that is how self-realization is achieved.
So these are all our sources, and thank you so much for listening to our presentation.